Imagine the panic of being stranded with nothing but the forest around you, and the quiet relief that washes over you when you pull a sturdy rope made from the very plants beneath your feet. In this moment, you realize that survival isn't about the gadgets you left at home. It's about the knowledge that lives in our ancestors' hands. Today, we're going to walk together through the ancient art of turning humble fibers into rope that can lift a shelter and weaving baskets that can carry water, food, and tools. By the end of this journey, you'll have the confidence to harvest, process, and create your own complete kit, using only what nature provides. First, let's talk about the plants that become our lifelines. The common nettle, with its stingy leaves, hides a fiber that rivals modern synthetic rope in strength. Then there's the inner bark of willow and birch, soft enough to split but tough enough to hold together under tension. Safety is key, so always wear gloves when handling nettles. The tiny hairs can cause a painful rash that distracts you when you need focus. A quick tip: cut the nettles at the base, near the root, where the fibers are the thickest and most flexible. When you strip the bark, look for the light-colored inner layer. That's the part that will spin into a strong strand. Now, harvesting must be done responsibly. Take only a small portion of any stand, no more than a fifth, and leave the rest to grow back. This ensures the forest remains healthy and continues to provide for future foragers. As you gather, notice the different textures. Nettle stems feel slightly rough, while bark strips are smooth when you run your fingers along them. Separate the usable fibers from the debris and lay them out in a clean spot to dry. Sunlight will help remove excess moisture, but don't let them sit too long or they'll become brittle. With clean, dry fibers in hand, the next step is preparation. For nettles, you'll need to remove the outer husk. Gently pull the fibers apart, one by one, using a small stick or a blunt knife. This process can be meditative. Each pull reveals a strand that will soon become part of a rope capable of bearing your weight. For bark, scrape away the outer bark until you reach the soft, pliable layer. Then, cut this layer into long, even ribbons about the width of a thumb. These ribbons will be twisted together later. Now comes the heart of rope making: twisting. Take 3 strands of nettle fiber and hold them together at the base. Begin twisting each strand clockwise, keeping the tension even. As the strands twist, they will naturally start to bind together, forming a tighter cord. Once you have a solid 3-strand core, you can begin to plait it with additional strands, creating a larger rope. The secret to a strong rope is consistent tension. Any slack will become a weak point. As you work, you'll feel the rope gaining firmness, and you'll understand why our ancestors trusted these simple tools to build shelters and hunt. While the rope dries, let's move on to basket weaving. A sturdy basket starts with a base of woven spokes. Use the same bark ribbons you prepared earlier. They are flexible enough to bend, but sturdy enough to hold shape. Lay out a circle of spokes, spacing them evenly, and then weave a second layer through the gaps, alternating over and under each spoke. This over-under pattern creates a flexible yet strong foundation. As you build up the sides, you'll gradually angle the spokes inward, giving the basket a natural curve that can hold a substantial load without collapsing. Remember, the weave pattern matters. A simple over-under weave gives you a basic basket, but if you add a twill pattern, crossing each weft over 2 warps before going under the next, you'll increase the basket's strength dramatically. This is especially useful when you need to transport heavy items like firewood or a water container. Take your time with each pass. The rhythm of weaving can be soothing, and the more you practice, the tighter and more reliable your baskets become. Now that you have both rope and baskets, think about how they can work together in the wild. Use the rope to suspend a tarp over a clearing, creating a quick shelter that keeps rain out. Then place a woven basket underneath to store dry fire starter materials, keeping them safe from damp ground. The rope can also serve as a makeshift pulley, allowing you to lift a heavy log into place for a sturdy lean-to. Every element you've created is a piece of a larger survival system, each supporting the other. At this point, you've seen how a simple plant can become a lifeline, and how patience and skill turn raw material into tools that can mean the difference between thriving and merely surviving. If this is opening your eyes to the power of primitive techniques, hit that subscribe button and let's keep exploring together. Feel free to share your own experiences with natural rope or basket making in the comments. I'd love to hear what you've built and how it helped you in the backcountry. As we wrap up this first part, remember that the process you've learned is repeatable anywhere you find suitable vegetation. The next steps will show you how to test the strength of your rope, how to reinforce a basket for extra load, and a surprise life-saving hack that uses a simple knot to create a makeshift splint. Keep your tools ready, stay curious, and let's continue turning nature's gifts into survival mastery. Now that you have your rope and baskets in hand, the next logical step is to put those creations through a real-world test. A rope that looks sturdy on the table can still betray you when you need it the most, so let's walk through a simple, repeatable method to gauge its strength without any fancy equipment. First, find a sturdy branch or a low, horizontal limb that can support a few kilograms of weight. Tie a secure loop at one end of your rope using a basic clove hitch, making sure the knot sits snugly against the fiber and doesn't slip. Next, attach a small sack of stones or a sandbag to the free end of the rope. If you don't have a bag, you can improvise one from a piece of bark or a woven leaf pouch. Slowly lift the load, watching the rope's fibers as they tighten. Pay close attention to any signs of fraying, stretching, or sudden give. If the rope holds steady and the load feels solid, you've achieved a functional tensile strength suitable for most shelter-building tasks, gear repair, and even modest hauling. If you notice any weakness, it's time to reinforce. Reinforcement is straightforward. Take a second strand of the same material, or if you have a different but compatible fiber, such as inner bark from a willow, and twist it around the original rope in a figure-eight pattern, creating a braided overlay. This not only adds bulk, but also distributes stress across multiple fibers, dramatically increasing durability. As you braid, keep the tension even on both strands. An uneven braid can create weak points that may fail under load. When you reach the end of the rope, finish with a tight reef knot to lock the braid in place. Test the reinforced rope again using the same method, and you'll notice a marked improvement in how it holds the weight. This reinforcement technique is especially valuable when you need a longer length of rope for a makeshift pulley system or when you anticipate heavy loads, such as pulling a fallen log into place for a lean-to shelter. With a reliable rope secured, let's shift focus back to the basket, because a strong container is just as essential as a strong line. The basic weave you practiced earlier creates a functional holder, but when you're transporting heavier items like a bundle of firewood, a water container, or a stash of dried herbs, you'll want to fortify the rim and the base. Start by adding a secondary rim of tightly twisted fibers that runs just inside the outer edge of the basket. Take a length of fresh nettle fiber, dampen it slightly to make it pliable, and coil it around the inside of the rim, pressing each turn firmly against the existing weave. As you work your way around, the coil will act like a supportive band, preventing the basket from splaying under weight. Once the inner rim is complete, reinforce the base by weaving a denser pattern of horizontal wefts, overlapping each row more than once. This creates a tighter mesh that can bear the pressure of heavier contents without collapsing. A tip many seasoned bushcrafters swear by is to apply a natural resin to the interior seams. Simply collect a small amount of pine sap, melt it over a low flame until it becomes fluid, and brush it lightly over the reinforced areas. As the resin cools, it hardens, sealing the fibers together and adding an extra layer of water resistance, perfect for keeping dry goods safe from damp ground. If pine resin isn't available, you can achieve a similar effect by using a thin layer of boiled animal fat, which also provides a degree of waterproofing while keeping the fibers flexible. Now that your rope and basket are both tested and reinforced, it's time to explore a surprising, life-saving hack that leverages a simple knot to create an emergency splint. Imagine you're out on a trail and a sudden slip sends you tumbling down a rocky slope. Your ankle twists, and you feel a sharp pain. Time to immobilize that joint to prevent further injury. The knot we'll use is known as the figure-eight loop, a classic in climbing and rescue circles, but it can be fashioned with any sturdy rope, even one you've just made yourself. Begin by forming a loose loop near the middle of the rope, then bring the working end over the standing part, under the loop, and back over the standing part, creating a figure-eight shape. Pull the working end through the lower part of the eight, tightening the knot until it forms a secure, self-locking loop. To turn this knot into a splint, slide the loop around the injured ankle, positioning it just above the joint. Then, take a straight branch or a sturdy piece of bark, place it alongside the injured limb, and wrap the rope around both the limb and the branch, threading the rope through the figure-eight loop each time you make a turn. As you wrap, pull the rope snugly with each pass. The figure-eight loop will grip the rope and prevent it from slipping, creating a firm, yet slightly flexible, support that holds the ankle in place. Once you've wrapped enough turns to feel stability, secure the loose ends of the rope by tucking them under the final wrap and tightening. This improvised splint can dramatically reduce pain and prevent worsening of the injury until you're able to seek professional help. If you've been following along, you've now mastered 3 core primitive skills: harvesting and processing natural fibers, constructing and reinforcing both rope and basket, and applying a critical first aid technique using those very same materials. Each of these skills builds on the previous one, forming a cohesive system that turns a simple walk in the woods into a self-sufficient adventure. At this point, if you're finding the techniques useful and see yourself applying them on your next trek, give this video a thumbs up. Your feedback not only encourages the channel, but also helps other outdoor enthusiasts discover these timeless methods. Let's take a moment to consider how these tools can be combined in a real-world scenario. Picture a rainy evening deep in the forest. You've set up a basic lean-to shelter using a fallen branch as a ridge pole, and you've draped a tarp over it, securing the corners with your handmade rope. The rope's strength holds the tarp taut, keeping water from pooling on the surface. Beneath the shelter, you place the reinforced basket, now lined with a thin coating of pine resin, to store dry tinder, flint, and a small stash of high-energy snacks. Because the basket is waterproofed, the contents stay dry even as the ground beneath becomes soggy. When night falls and temperatures drop, you can use a length of rope to fashion a simple pulley system to raise a fire-ready bundle of kindling up to the shelter's roof, keeping the fire away from the ground and allowing you to control the burn more efficiently. The same rope can be looped around a sturdy branch to create a makeshift clothesline, drying any wet garments you may have. If a sudden gust threatens to dislodge the tarp, you can quickly tighten the rope by pulling a loop through a simple hand-over-hand hitch, adjusting tension on the fly without any tools. All of these actions demonstrate how a handful of natural materials, when processed and assembled correctly, can replace dozens of modern gadgets. The key is understanding the properties of the fibers you work with, mastering the basic knots and weaves, and then thinking creatively about how each element can support the other. Before we close, let's recap the essential steps so you can practice them on your own. First, identify and harvest safe, high-tensile fibers like nettle stems or inner bark from flexible trees. Second, clean, dry, and twist those fibers into a strong, consistent rope, reinforcing when necessary with additional strands. Third, use that rope to construct a basic basket, employing an over-under weave for simplicity, and then add reinforcements to the rim and base for added load-bearing capacity. Fourth, test your rope's strength with a practical load test, and adjust by braiding in extra fibers if needed. Fifth, apply a natural resin or animal fat to waterproof and seal the basket's interior seams. Finally, learn the figure-8 loop knot and practice turning it into an emergency splint, a skill that could mean the difference between a minor sprain and a serious injury in the backcountry. Each of these stages can be practiced individually, allowing you to build confidence before combining them into a full survival kit. As you repeat the process, you'll notice the rhythm of twisting, weaving, and knotting becomes almost meditative, a mindful connection to the environment that modern life often lacks. Now, as we bring this tutorial to its conclusion, I want to thank you for staying with me through every step of this journey from raw plant to functional tool. If you've learned something new, found a technique that resonates, or simply enjoyed watching nature transform under your hands, let me know in the comments below. Share your own experiments, ask questions, or suggest other primitive skills you'd like to see explored. Your stories and ideas inspire the community and help us all grow together. If you appreciate the value of these ancestral techniques and want to see more in-depth guides on topics like firemaking, shelter building, and edible plant identification, consider subscribing and hitting the notification bell so you never miss a new video. Your support fuels the channel and allows us to keep bringing practical, hands-on content that empowers you to thrive in the wild. Until the next adventure, keep gathering, keep crafting, and keep exploring the timeless wisdom that lies just beyond the trail. Stay safe, stay curious, and may your rope always hold, your baskets always carry, and your spirit always seek the next horizon.